Welcome to the Elite Performance Team Podcast. Dominic Perlo and Dr. Jan Kasperits produce podcasts weekly with information in health and wellness, as well as guests on our podcast. If this is your first time listening, thanks for listening. If you like our content, you can find more information on Facebook or subscribe to us on YouTube and iTunes. Today we have Larry Levine, a clinical hypnotist. Hello, Larry.
How you doing?
Very well. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I started out as a child.
Very good.
Many, many years ago. And I guess the interesting thing for me was I had a business career. I was managing people. I ran a $88 million profit center for a multinational, multi-billion-dollar company. I had 154 people on my payroll in my division. I had 45 salespeople. And besides responsible for the operation and profitability of that division, I was also responsible for sales. And I had 43 salespeople that I would train. And I was baffled that I could give the same training to all the people, and then after the training, some people would use it, and some people wouldn't use it. And I made a distinction between can do and will do. So can do is, do you have the training? Do you have the knowledge? Do you have the skills? Will do, are you going to do it? Is there something that will cause you to do it, or something that will prevent you from doing it? And what I found was that I had people that were excellent on the can do, but they just wouldn't do it. And I didn't understand it. So I started asking myself and looking closely at the people that wouldn't do. And what I found out was that they all had varying degrees of emotional reasons to not do it. Some of them might be described as phobias. Fear of rejection, fear of disagreement, fear of conflict. So they could go into an interactive situation, a selling situation, a conversation, and they just wouldn't do it because they were uncomfortable with it. So more than, or close to 30 years ago, I started the study of how do you influence people, how do you change people's minds. And I started studying hypnosis and other grief treatment remedies that were all designed just for rapid change in very specific areas.
That's fascinating.
So what I found was that a lot of my salespeople were public speaking phobes. A lot of my salespeople had social anxiety. And one-on-one in a training environment, in a classroom where they were comfortable, they could do anything. You get them out of the classroom and you put them in a room with strangers, and all of a sudden the emotional stuff would kick in, and they'd lock up in fear, and they wouldn't be able to use the training that they had. So that's how I got into hypnosis 30 years ago.
Very interesting. Let's start with a quote of the day. People don't do therapy to change their past, but to change their future. Doc, what do you think about that?
It's very in tune with what we're going to be talking about today, because unfortunately a lot of people live in the past, and I used to be there too. I used to live in my past, not to a significant degree, but people, it's like the ball and chain around your ankle. They won't let themselves proceed or go ahead and try new things because maybe in their past they failed at something or didn't do something to their expectations, so they didn't want to try again, put themselves out there, I guess. But yeah, I see it with the majority of people that I interact with. They're constantly stuck in the past, and that's pretty much what defines them, is their past, instead of focusing on the future. Currently, the way I look at things, because I used to have some significant anxiety issues, because I was constantly looking too far in the future, you know. And right now what I do is, I read a nice little quote, is don't focus on the staircase, focus on the step. So I'm just focusing on the first step, second step, being more patient, and understanding. I listened to a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a nut job. He just drops F-bombs left and right. He's got a great message though. And he He says, forget about how people judge you, what people say, forget about your past, they're all lessons, and just proceed forward. So yeah, I love the quote, Tom. Good job.
Larry, what do you think about that quote?
It's interesting. In my work, I make a distinction between stress and anxiety. So stress is real, it's in the present, and we all need stress, and stress is useful. If you drive and you're making a left-hand turn, you want to be a little stressed, otherwise you'll get into a head-on collision. So stress is good, and stress is always in the present. Anxiety is either in the past or the future, and anxiety is not good. Stress is an external condition, anxiety is an internal condition, might be produced by stress, but when we take stress and we project it backwards into our past or forwards into our future, we're turning it into anxiety, which serves no beneficial purpose at all. And usually, when people are stressed, they step up to the stress and they function. When people have anxiety, they don't, because anxiety in the past or in the future, you're not there. You're only living in the present. So if your mindset is, all my problems are in the past or the future, there's no logical reason to take action in the present.
Right.
And I talk to people about what I call having an impoverished vocabulary. So if I were to ask you, I'll give you 4 words: pebble, stone, rock, boulder. How are they the same?
They're all solid.
And what else? What else about them that's the same?
Probably close to the same shape.
And substance.
Hard.
How are they different?
Size.
Size.
Absolutely.
Now what if you didn't have 4 words? What if you only had 1 word that you believed described all of them, because you couldn't make the distinction about size, you could only make the distinction about substance. It's the same substance, they're just a different size. Now imagine you're driving down the road, convertible, beautiful day, and somebody yells, "Watch out, there's a pebble rolling down the hill," versus "Watch out, there's a boulder rolling down the hill."
You're not going to even react to the fact of a pebble.
So we use the word stress. You may not be stressed. You may be focused. You may be attentive. You may be concerned. You may be, there's 10 different words that I use instead of stress, and they're all positive. But I use stress positively too. So when somebody says, "I'm stressed," I'll respond, "What are you focused on? What are you paying attention to?"
Yeah, that's got my mind going.
Does it?
But it's true. It's true. And the same,
No, but think of it the other way. Think if you only had 1 word for boulder, rock, stone, and pebble, and let's say that 1 word was anxiety, and you couldn't make the distinction between pebble anxiety and boulder anxiety, or you couldn't make the distinction between worried about something and paying attention to something or focusing on something. When I'm driving and I'm making a left turn, I'm not worried about it. I'm focused on it. I'm paying attention to it. Is it stress? Yes, it's positive stress. It's good stress. It causes us to pay attention to something that if we didn't pay attention to, we could be damaged.
yeah, it makes total sense. I also believe that there's good anxiety and bad anxiety.
I don't.
You don't?
I don't.
So what about something like, so I'm going to run a marathon. Before that marathon, I am as anxious as I could be.
You're focused.
I like it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's a difference between good and bad anxiety. I think it's all negative.
It's all negative.
If
Because
we
your
take-
perception is like Larry made a great point with the pebble, the rock, and the boulder. Most things are just pebbles, but we're acting like they're boulders. And then I interact with people, I have some people that come in that, I'm trying to distance myself from, because everything to them is a freaking boulder. And it's like they come out with the same anxiety or the same attitude when it's like if something really minuscule going on or some big thing going on, it's all this huge boulder of anxiety. It's like, you gotta get it fixed.
I have this thing where I am color challenged. I'm not color blind, I'm color challenged. So I don't see the range of colors that everyone else sees. And because of that, I have fewer words in my color vocabulary than other people do. So my youngest daughter now is 21. I was taking her rock climbing maybe when she was 9. We were doing one of these indoor rock climbing things. And I have her on the rope, you know, the harness and all that. And she looks down at me and she says, "Daddy, I'm stuck. Where do I put my foot?" I said, "Put your foot on that purple rock." She says, "There is no purple rock. Put your foot on the rock that looks purple to me." I didn't have the word, so we couldn't communicate. And then she says, "Oh, you mean this pink one?" And she's pointing to it. And I said, "If that's pink to you, that's the one I mean."
That's really interesting. My younger son, absolutely an adorable kid, just really is. Not because he's my kid. Yeah, he really.
He uses the cuteness for manipulation.
Oh my God, so bad. He's color challenged. And one year we forgot to mention to the teachers that he saw colors differently than everyone else. Now, ever since he was small, I didn't want to tell him, "Hey, you're colorblind." I didn't want to say that because
But he's not. He sees
Correct.
colors, he just gives them different names.
Correct. And I didn't want to put that negative word to it,
Mhm.
right? So one day I woke up from my room and I'm dressed literally head to toe in green. And he said, "Dad, you really look good in brown." And you know, it's kind of funny, but at the same time it's kind of like, oh man. But so we didn't tell the teacher one year. He got really smart. He used to look at the crayons. He used to read the crayons when he was very small to know what color. And then he'll take tests. So one time he took a math test, and it was like if the answer is 5, you know, you color this one red, whatever, and he colored it all wrong. And the teacher sent tests over. Said, "Oh my God, we forgot to tell the teacher that he doesn't see colors the way everybody else does." Anyway, but that's really, really good. To take something that most people call colorblind sounds really negative.
But think about it from the perspective of the person who now needs to communicate. So you might have 9 words for color, I might have 3. So if I tell you, pick up the red book, you don't know what to do. But what I'm really saying is pick up the book that looks red to me,
Right.
but you have no idea what that is.
That's fascinating.
So there's this sort of mantra that communication is the result you produce. It's not your intention. So imagine trying to communicate to somebody that you want toast buttered, but without words.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do that.
So you put you hold your hand out, you imagine that there's a piece of toast, you go through this, and chances are nobody knows what I'm talking about. It's not, my intention is, I'm buttering a piece of toast. It's what I'm producing is an incomprehensible result to everybody else. They have no idea what I'm trying to communicate. My intention is clear. The communication is faulty because it's not what you put out, it's what's received.
It's mind-blowing.
And
It's true.
And the level at which we communicate always is 2 levels of communication. And there's actually more, but there's one that most people pay attention to, which is content, the words. What did I just said? The second level of communication that's much more important is the emotional level of communication. If I walk into the room and I'm stomping my feet and my shoulders are down and I have a sour look on my face, and you look at me and you say, "Larry, what's wrong?" Nothing. The content, the verbiage, is nothing's wrong. The nonverbal communication, the emotional communication is this guy's upset.
There's a lot going on.
Now, what do you pay attention to? What do you respond with if you're in communication with me in that state? Do you talk to me about my words? Oh, that's great, everything's fine. Or do you talk to me about my demeanor, the emotions that I'm putting out?
Posture, yeah.
And what happens a lot in relationships, especially with significant others, we tend to listen verbally rather than emotionally. So, this morning, my wife told me, I'm going food shopping. So I said, do you want me to come? And the words were, you don't have to, you're too busy. But the emotion was, I'd love it if you would come. And I'm listening at both levels. And I didn't respond to the words, I responded to the emotion. And I said, I wish I could come with you today, but I have a prior commitment, I'm here. She says, yeah, I get it, but thanks. So I didn't respond to the verbal message, I responded to the emotional message, which is what she really wanted response to.
Right. Let's talk about hypnosis. What is hypnosis?
Hypnosis is a naturally occurring phenomenon that has many different names. Trance, relaxation, those are two. Examples of hypnotic phenomenon that happen all the time. One is time distortion. So when people are in trance, whether it's a formal trance with a hypnotist, or if they are in trance, one thing that happens is that time gets distorted. 3 minutes can seem like 3 hours, or 3 hours can seem like 3 minutes. So there's this phenomenon of time distortion. And when I'm working with people in trance, one of the things that happens when they come out of trance is they ask me, how long was it? And I ask them, how long did it seem like? And I'll get ranges of 3 minutes and 3 hours for something that took 25 minutes or 40 minutes. So time distortion is a natural hypnotic phenomenon. Dissociation. What that means is we are experiencing the world, but not through our own eyes. So when I'm fully associated, I'm looking at you, I'm seeing you through my eyes. To be dissociated, I would take the position of the camera or an observer in the room, and instead of seeing through my eyes, I'd be in the picture. Now, a normal hypnotic phenomenon is when you think of something, you can either see it through your eyes or you see yourself in the picture. When you see yourself in the picture, you're dissociated. So if I asked you, what did you do yesterday? You would probably give me a dissociated answer. You would tell me about what you're seeing, a picture from the past. If I asked you about tomorrow, you'd be creating a picture of something that you're doing in the future. This is natural. This is a hypnotic phenomenon called dissociation.
I actually used that myself last year in 2019. I was going through a significant amount of anxiety and stress. A lot of things were happening and felt out of control out of some things. I was reading an enormous amount of books trying to get a grip and get out of this loop of anxiety. And one of the techniques that I read about was, it might have been Tony Robbins or somebody else who mentioned that put yourself in the position as, not as the actor in the movie, but as the director.
Yeah.
And what you can do is, because you're the director, you could actually change the script, you could actually change the lighting, you could change the temperature of the room, you could actually change the entire scene. I mean, you could, instead of having the actor walk in the door, you can have him walk out the door, you can have him sit on the left, you can have him sit on the right. Don't be the actor, put yourself in as the director. And the thing is, it would work, but I would have to constantly think about having it work, having to put in the mental work to think of myself as the director all the time. So when I was able to put myself in that position of the director, I noticed I was basically able to do a lot of things that I wanted to do without as much not stress. I was able to get things done that needed to get done, because I was no longer an actor in this movie, but I was more or less the guy who's directing everything. So to me, I found to be very helpful to be disassociated with certain situations.
And what happens with dissociation is that the emotional connection is severed.
Yep.
So if someone's yelling at you, you experience it. If you're watching someone yelling at you, you're still experiencing it, but in a very different way. Now you're experiencing yourself as being yelled at, you're experiencing another person as the yeller, and it's not personal. You're just able to evaluate it from an external position because you're not experiencing it through your own eyes, through your own emotions. And it's a very helpful state to be in. People ask me, why hypnosis? Hypnosis, dreams, meditation, imagination might all be the same, but they're certainly very similar in that the primary question is what? The unconscious, the question is what? In the dream, the question is what? If you're having a dream and you want a glass of water, you look at your hand and the glass of water is there. Consciously, we ask how and why. So if I were to ask you, can I have a glass of water? You would immediately think, how do I get, how and why? How do I get the water? How do I get it there? In a dream state or unconsciously, the only question is what? The water's there. In a dream state, unconsciously, you walk into a dirty room, you don't like it, you snap your fingers and it's clean. Consciously, you gotta get the vacuum cleaner, you gotta get the broom, you gotta do something. So hypnosis is a very useful state for learning new skills and new strategies without getting the how is it gonna get done into the equation. My belief is that we, human beings, individuals, are wise in how to heal ourselves. We already know how. There's just stuff blocking us from doing it. So my job as the hypnotist, as the facilitator, is to move away the stuff that's blocking the natural healing to take place. And sometimes natural healing might just be doing something you know you should do.
And that's what I experienced, because I actually went to Larry for an interesting way that me and Larry met. Larry got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he was doing some consumer shopping to see who's got the best rates for hyperbaric chamber therapy, and we do. We have some low rates, and we were talking on the phone, and I told him what we do. We also provide these other biooptimization tools with hyperbaric chamber therapy. And then I'm a firm believer that everybody comes into your life at a specific reason, at a specific time for a specific reason. So before we hung up the phone, I asked Larry, Larry, what do you do? He's like, I'm a clinical hypnotist. I'm like, okay, we'll see you on Thursday. We hung up the phone, then I felt it right here. It's like this innate intelligence I have, where I'm like, oh, I gotta call him back. And within a minute, I'm calling him back, and I'm like, Larry, I apologize, we just got off the phone. You called me up for, hyperbaric chamber therapy, but there's more. You came into my life at a specific time, for a specific reason. You're here, we need to talk. I'm like, what can you do for anxiety? And you told me you had some experience with anxiety. So then literally, I think I sent one patient to you that day, who I think you saw pretty quick, and then I made an appointment a day or two later. I went to your house, and I'm not knowing what to expect, but I'm very open to things. So we went there, and my anxiety was bad. I could not get out of this loop. And sometimes it would be crippling to a point, and I'm a highly motivated individual, entrepreneur by all means, and I just didn't have it anymore because it's that loop. I couldn't get out of the loop. I couldn't get out of my own way. Making too many excuses not to be able to do things. So I went under hypnosis. I couldn't open my eyes, couldn't move my hands, couldn't move my feet. If I had my own thoughts, I was totally conscious, I could hear the dog barking downstairs. I could basically have my own thoughts, I felt fine, I just couldn't move, couldn't see. And then I don't remember exactly what you said, but you used some like big words like motivation and productivity and things of that nature. And time went by really quick. I woke up, I got out of hypnosis, and I felt fine. But then following day, I was like, I went through like a manic episode, a good manic episode. Like, whoa, I just have like an enormous amount of energy. Where I used to have like debilitating anxiety. Instead, I had motivation to go ahead and start doing stuff. So now what I noticed, usually on Sunday nights and like Monday mornings, the anxiety would be overwhelming sometimes. But now what I have, instead of having that anxiety sensation, it seems like it's been replaced with motivation. It's like, here's the goal, and instead of thinking of all the obstacles in my way, I'm just shooting for the goal. You know, I might have to take 10 different shots from 10 different angles, but I see the goal, I'm gonna get the goal. So instead of having that anxiety, the debilitating anxiety, my loop's broken. And I've told people, and I think maybe under hypnosis, Larry told me to pass out a business card, maybe, possible, just saying. But, because I've passed out a lot. To the point where like, Larry, you gotta come by, I need more cards. So that's one of the things that I do in my practice, even before meeting Larry. I always look at the past medical history as you're supposed to do, but I look right there to see who has anxiety. Because I understand how anxiety can be debilitating and can really affect every other aspect of your life. So that's the first thing that I will address. If somebody comes in with a low back or neck issue, but they're having anxiety, I ask them right there, bluntly to the point, how's your anxiety today? And then I tell them about my anxiety. So this way, that barrier is broken, now they're a little bit more comfortable. Or even go and tell them like one of my episodes I had, just to get them a little bit more comfortable with what we're gonna do. And the other thing too is I have a significant lower back issue. And when I was at Larry's place, I sat down on the couch for an hour, which would mean, I'm gonna stand up without any pain. I'm gonna have some significant pain standing. Larry's like, stand up, let's see how your back feels. And Larry didn't even know I had a low back issue. And I stood up and I had absolutely no low back. And then actually he spoke with one of my patients here in the office, and the gentleman had a pain of like an 8 out of 10. And Larry just spoke to him a little bit. He used one of his techniques on him, and I think his pain went from 8 to a 10, from 8 out of 10 down to a 5 out of 10.
In around 2 minutes.
In about 2 minutes, and I mean, there was no hands-on stuff, nothing at all. It was all verbal, a lot of visualization, and then boom, he was that much better. So to me, there's a huge mental component to it. I think it's all mental. You know, you can't have biomechanical issues, but then people, my goal is, I get people better a lot quicker than anybody else. Because if somebody doesn't get better quicker and you're not constantly building them up, they take the identity of that issue, and that becomes them. They become the actor, no longer are they the director. So I try to be the director and try to put them in a position where they understand that this is not them. We're going to change the script really quick, and we get them moving. And that's where you come in, Dom. Because I tell them at first visit, listen, you can get better 2 or 3 visits. So like, be ready. 2 to 3 visits, you're going to be ready. And then you're going to work with that guy over there. He's going to be functionally strong, and this is not going to happen. Compared to the nonsensical scripts I get sometimes from physical therapists or orthopedists for a sprained ankle, for like, I can't get off this one. I had a child come in, 18 visits for a sprained ankle, the kid's got no pain. What are you teaching a person to come in 18 times to a doctor's office to get therapy? They're going to think they have some serious issue. When I'm telling him and the parents that there's nothing wrong with this kid. 4 visits, that's all he needs. Go back to your orthopedist, this is nonsense. So, my 2 cents.
I like that. But a lot of that, I'm sort of in that whole story. I've got a torn meniscus in my knee.
Yeah.
And most doctors would, you can't run.
Stop running?
Surgery.
Yeah.
You have to get surgery.
Because everybody's got the same meniscus injury in the same area, which prevents them from running.
And I made myself functionally strong, and here I am running 5 days a week. So I totally agree with that, Doc, and I think people do become their MRI.
Yeah.
What is their MRI say? Oh, yeah, well, that's me. Yeah, I've got this. I can't do anything. Larry, what is not hypnosis?
there are, what you see on TV.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with this.
When there is stage hypnosis, there is street hypnosis, it's entertainment. There's no clinical value. So if I want, and I do stage hypnosis, I don't like doing street hypnosis because it involves going up to strangers and saying, would you like to be hypnotized? But stage hypnosis is entertainment. And the hypnotist goes through some talk, which is called patter, and then the hypnotist will bring up 10, 15 people on stage, hoping that 8 of them or 6 of them will remain, and the rest gets sent back into the crowd. Now, anybody that volunteers for stage hypnosis, consciously or unconsciously, they want to perform. And they know it's going to happen. It's a show, they're participating, the trance state is real, but the suggestions have no therapeutic value. And we tend to think of stage hypnosis as someone taking over our thoughts, taking over our minds. It looks that way, but at any given moment, anybody can get up and leave the stage. But they choose to stay there because they want to.
Interesting. Very interesting.
The way I describe clinical hypnosis is, imagine you're driving your car and on your GPS. So I'm in the passenger seat and I say, Dominic, in 300 feet, make a left. You go 300 feet, you can go straight, you can make a left, you can make a right, you can even back up. I'm just giving you a suggestion. You don't have to follow that suggestion. The only time that you will follow that suggestion is if it's in your best interest. You will never follow a suggestion that diminishes you. You will never follow a suggestion that is less beneficial than what you're currently doing. So the science of hypnosis is basically, the science of hypnosis you can learn in a weekend, putting somebody into a trance. What to do when they're in the trance to make it clinically useful takes the next 30 years.
In regards to hypnosis, though, like, what if somebody wanted to make, like, would you recommend if people are trying to make personal changes in their life?
Yeah, I think hypnosis works very, very well for unconscious, non-voluntary thoughts, behaviors, emotions. So if someone has a behavior that is conscious, if they punch the wall and they want to punch the wall, hypnosis isn't going to help them. If they punch the wall because they've lost control, because they lost it, hypnosis can get them to the point where they don't lose it, so they'll stop punching the wall. But hypnosis does not work very well on a voluntary behavior. So when you look at something like smoking, you may say smoking is a voluntary behavior, but people don't want to smoke. They want the feeling that smoking gives them. So in order to get somebody to stop smoking, I have to change their feelings about smoking, not their actions about smoking.
What kind of hypnosis did you do with me when was that brief therapy?
It's all brief therapy. Brief therapy means that I don't have to get into your childhood, that I don't have to understand your story.
Sure.
Now, I don't know if I talked to you about this. We all have stories, and the story we've practiced for years, and it's usually a 1 or 2 minute version, and it's the opposite of the greatest hits. This is the worst hits. So we tell people a story, and do you know why we tell people our story?
Yeah.
We want them to understand why we're so screwed up.
Yep.
So we
Yeah,
tell them
that's-
this, hey, if you had this story, you'd be as screwed up as I am. And the only reason we share our stories is because we want people to understand why we're messed up. Now, in your story, do you tell people how old you were when you learned how to ride a bicycle? Never. Doesn't explain why you're messed up. Do you talk about how loving and caring your parents were? Probably not. Doesn't explain why you're messed up. So we go to the greatest hits of the worst events in our life. We tie it together as if they're dots that need to be connected, and we tell this story that we believe a stranger, when hearing this story, will say, yeah, if I had that story, I'd be as messed up as you are.
See, I find myself doing something similar, but with a different goal in mind. I try to explain to people, I'm like, you know, I try to give a lot of young people advice. They see what I do, they want to go into doing what I do as well, and I told them that, listen, for 12 years, I worked for other people. I got fired from every job I had, in a nice way. I just, alpha male, we just don't get along. And never got fired for any bad reason whatsoever, just didn't get along with the business owner, and had my own philosophy on things. But then I tell them my story about my failures, but how these failures actually have brought me to the level where I'm at. And I try to express to people that you need to fail and fail often, but just learn from those failures. Because if you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again, you're not really learning from your failures. So I do tell a story. I don't tell them, like, I do tell them I have a great childhood. And that's one of the first things I do tell them, but then I went through this phase, especially when I'm trying to build up rapport with patients, and I can see that they're nervous, they're apprehensive, or they have underlying anxiety. Try to let them know that I had this great childhood, no issues whatsoever, and then out of nowhere, boom, anxiety hit. From some nonsense crap that happened in my life. And that was a pebble that appeared to be a boulder, was maybe the size of a stone. All right, so it was all made up of the same crap, but I was blowing things out of proportion. And then by telling them that story, I let them know that good childhood, went through some shit, you know, had some issues with my life, and now this is the perspective that I have. What I also try to tell people is I'm 46 years old. I'm gonna live to 100, barring any kind of like getting hit by a bus or anything like that. But I'm gonna live to 100. I've learned enormous things through my stories and other people's stories, that now I have the knowledge to really enjoy the next 46 years of my life and be the director of the life, not the actor.
Well, you used your story, you rewrote your story in a positive way.
Sure.
So that all the anxiety, all the setbacks became stepping stones for future improvement.
And I'm
motivation.
constantly rewriting. I'm constantly
Yeah.
editing. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go in this direction. I'm going to go in that direction. Because a lot of people think that it's not just business goals. It's any kind of goals, life goals. It's a straight path. It's never a straight path. You constantly have to make these small little corrections. But when people are doing these, wow, this didn't work. Oh my God, nothing's going to work.
Yeah, and
Or I went right, I should have left, went left, oh no, it's not gonna work. Well, that's how it works. You're constantly making little changes in everything you do to get to that goal.
when I was in business and talking to my team, I would talk to them about what's valuable in business. When you're working with somebody, what do you want them to be able to do? And my answer is, I want people that make good decisions. Well, how do you end up making good decisions? Well, you gotta have experience. How do you get experience? You make decisions. Some decisions are what I call, they generate an undesired or unexpected outcome, and some decisions generate an expected or desired outcome. So there's only two types of decisions that we make. There's decisions that give us the desired outcome, and then there's decisions that give us a lesson. So in my world, there are no failures. If you're making a decision, you're learning from it. And the only way you can fail, there's actually two ways you can fail. You can make no decision, or you can make a decision and not learn from it. Otherwise, there's only learning opportunities and there's desirable outcomes.
Why is hypnosis often the last treatment? The
TV.
last-
TV. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. If
What people vision hypnosis to be.
when you see
because of
hypnosis
TV.
on TV, or if you've gone to an event where there's a stage hypnotist, you see a group of people doing silly things for the entertainment of others. And in the moment, they're unaware that they're doing silly things for the entertainment of others, which some people may experience as a loss of control.
That's a
And
great
most-
point. Let me just interject, because when we met, I mean, I think, and I still do to this day, I tell everybody who walks through the door, tell them about our interaction, how basically I got out of this loop of anxiety. And I let them know that my introduction to hypnosis with you was that you told me, like, listen, we're not going to be going into your past, we're not going to be doing any psychology, I'm not a psychiatrist. This is your goal, I'm just going to take you right to your goal. And this way it's going to eliminate all the nonsense. And I'll be frank, I had a fantastic childhood. I had no issues whatsoever by any means, but you took me right to that goal, and that's pretty much what it was. It was brief to quick to the point, and outstanding results.
Thank you.
And continue with what you're saying.
So there is a,
One more thing.
yeah.
The control, that's what I want to talk about. So I put out on Facebook and other social media sites that I was going to go to a hypnotist. So I got a bunch of other guys and women that I socialized with. They're also doctors, and a couple of them sent me private messages. Don't do it because you're going to be out of control. And then I wrote back in a very respectful manner. I didn't write back immediately. I pondered on it because these people, they generally care. And I'm like, that's exactly what I need to do. I need to give up control and not be able to try to be in a position where I think I need to fix everything the way I've been doing things. Maybe I need to sit on somebody's couch, not be able to open my eyes, not be able to move my hands or feet, just hear things, and give somebody some control over me just for a little bit to try to clear my head a little bit. And that's how I kind of explain it now to people. It's not that I gave them total control of everything I'm doing, but I listened a lot more. I was able to listen to somebody else instead of this loop that kept going on through my head. Rather than seeing boulders, I see them as little pebbles.
And I would never describe hypnosis as giving up control. I just wouldn't describe it that way, because people always have the choice of getting out of trance. The same way, if this chair was uncomfortable, you wouldn't ask permission, you just get up and you move. If you were sitting in a way that was not comfortable, you change your body position.
Yeah.
A hypnotist does not control the other person. The hypnotist basically just offers choices that may not be apparent to the conscious mind. And I'll badly quote Einstein, who said the level of thinking that produced the problem is not the level of thinking where the problem can be solved. So we're aware of our issues consciously, and if we were able to solve the problems consciously, we would have done it already. You don't need me, you would have done it. Hey, I overeat, I don't want to overeat, I'm going to stop. Well, it doesn't work that way. I'm smoking, I don't want to smoke. I'm anxious, I don't want to be anxious. I have panic attacks, I don't want to have panic attacks. I have IBS, migraines, psoriasis, whatever it is, I don't want it. But consciously, we don't know how it got there. So I'll explain something that, to me, I find this interesting. I often, when I'm doing a lot of public speaking, I'll do like a joke with people. And I'll ask, how many of you are parents? And hands will go up. And how many of you had parents? And now all the hands go up. As parents, we want our kids to be safe. So we would want to teach our kids, if it's hot, if it's sharp, if it's pointy, if it's new, stay away. We can't teach our kids the 1,000 things that are hot, the 1,000 things that are sharp, the 1,000 things that are pointy, the 1,000 things that are new. So what we want is generalization. We want our mind to generalize. And if we look back at cavemen, cave dad told his kids, if it has teeth and if it has a tail, be careful. So they are as careful of a squirrel as they are of a tiger. It's generalized. And it's too much work to explain to a 4-year-old the squirrel's okay but the tiger isn't. So we want them to generalize. Now what should happen is that when that child is 17 or 18, the parent should sit them down and say, you know, I installed this program in you when you were a child for your safety, because your judgment was not developed, your ability to make distinctions was not developed. There are a lot of reasons why I needed to install this program for overprotection. Now that you're 17 or 18, your judgment is better, you can make distinctions, I'm going to uninstall the program. We've never had that conversation. I've never uninstalled the program in my kids. My parents have never uninstalled the program in me. And I generalize fear, I generalize anxiety, I generalize stuff, but then I have to realize that this is generalization at work. I don't need to be afraid of certain things, I just need to be aware. And as an adult, I have the cognitive skills and I can make the distinctions between a razor and a sheet of paper. Both are capable of cutting me, but I don't have the same respect for the sheet of paper that I do for the razor blade.
Larry, you really make a lot of great points. You really do. This podcast has been absolutely tremendous. It's eye-opening, very eye-opening.
Well, imagine, I mean, most people, including me, did not have the perspective on the stuff that I'm talking about. So it never occurred to me that this concept of generalization was not just desirable and necessary to keep me alive as a child, to keep my kids alive as a child, but at some point it became dysfunctional. So you have a very functional, useful, life-saving program that's installed by other people, and it doesn't get uninstalled. Now you look today, who's installing programs? Big pharma, the government, advertising agencies. If you are not paying attention to the messages coming in, you will be given suggestions at the unconscious level that you may act upon. So I'm watching a commercial for something, and it tells me that because I had chicken pox, I have a 23% chance of getting Crohn's disease. So 1 out of 4 people watching are thinking maybe I'm the one that's going to get Crohn's disease. You can induce a disease. I don't even know what Crohn's disease is. I know it's autoimmune. And autoimmune is nervous system. Nervous system to me is immune system and unconscious. Science now thinks the immune system, the unconscious, and the nervous system are the same. They're not similar, they're the same.
Doc, anything in closing here?
Yeah, me and Don, we do a lot of speaking events. We do these professional development days for teachers. We talk to businesses, and we're also been working with veterans now too. So we're doing our mindset portion of it too. But I'm actually happy to say that Larry's going to be helping with us with this as well. Because to give, like what me and what Dominic do, we tell people our story. And there was one point where people are like, yeah, but that's just you guys. So it's like, oh shit. I'm like, Dom, send me your fat pic. Because we're 5 years difference in age, but around the same time of what, like, our 30s?
I think I was in my 20s. You may have been closer to 30.
And, I mean, I was fat. I was fat, drinking Molson Ice, smoking cigarettes, very unhealthy. And then Dom, I mean, he was like orca fat.
Swollen.
Swollen. He was wearing like Suns Out, Guns Out shirt, and there's more hanging out than just guns. And it was, we had to basically let people see our story to understand that it wasn't always friggin' this. So, and then now what we were doing with our professional development, we were talking about mindset. They see us talk, you know, we're professional, we're funny, you know, we're engaging, and they're like, everyone's like, oh wow, I wish I could be like that. But so what we do at the end of our talks is we have to tell them our story, and there's times where people are crying because I have like non-traumatic issues that Dominic had to go through some really trivial, I mean seriously trivial, life-challenging issues, and then to see where we are now. So what we're doing is we're bringing on Larry on board to basically let people understand there's a massive difference between a pebble, a stone, and a boulder. So maybe he could actually help people clear up with that, because especially with the hashtag Stop the Stigma, it's like wildfire. Everybody, it's okay to talk about mental wellness and mental health issues, which I have myself. I went through bouts of massive depression, then I went through anxiety. Still have I have a little anxiety here and there, but it's like they're pebbles. You know, I haven't gotten a boulder at all since seeing Larry. So I think it was a great podcast. I'm looking forward to working with Larry and other projects as well.
Can I add a few things?
Yeah, 100%.
We've conversed many times.
Sure.
And there are things that I have chosen not to share because I didn't think it would be relevant. But in this podcast, I'll share a little bit. I was suicidal.
Sure. Yeah, I was there.
I was addicted to painkillers. I was put on antidepressants, anti-anxiety, antipsychotic. I was a mess. And what I found is, and this is my theory, I don't know that it's a scientific theory, there is a attribute that I call resourcefulness. And resourcefulness is the ability to deal with your shit while the shit's happening. I wasn't resourceful. When you're suicidal, when you're addicted to painkillers, when you're taking antidepressants, you're not resourceful. I couldn't help myself.
Sure.
And you know, I don't go out and tell people that. But you know, when you talk about your respective stories, the easiest part of my story is that when I was 14, I was 5'4" and 170 pounds. Now I'm 5'10" and 140 pounds. Big difference being a little fat, pudgy 14-year-old, and back then the kind word was husky. Now it's just fat. But you know, emotional scars.
Sure.
I remember if you're a guy, and if you've gone to public school, and if you took a gym class, there is a moment where people are choosing sides, right? We've been there. I wasn't the last one picked. I was the one that wasn't picked. Neither one wanted me on their team. And you know, the coaches, the teacher coaches were not attentive to the emotional damage that was being done to a 14-year-old because both sides looked at me, thought I was too fat and too unathletic to even be on their teams. They would rather do the game without me. And as I'm saying this now, I'm actually experiencing a little bit of negative emotion. And you know, I'll process it. It'll take me a few minutes to process it. But that's part of the reason why I don't want to bring people into their story, and I don't want to hear story. So one of the things that I ask people in order to get them out of story, imagine you're driving a car on the beach. We can all imagine doing that. When you look through your rear view mirror, you see tire tracks in the sand. And I ask people, what effects do those tire tracks have on where you're going?
Nothing.
Nothing. The only effect of where you're going is your hands on the steering wheel. And yet so many people point to the tire tracks and say that is causing me to go where I'm going. Not my hands on the steering wheel. It's the tire tracks. It's my past. And I tell them, I'm sure you have a very interesting past. I just don't want to hear about it. Sorry. It's not going to help me in my work, and I don't believe it's going to help me in my work with you. So I don't want to hear the past. The only things I'm really interested in is how do you feel now, and how would you like to feel? And people usually express the changes they want in a negative, which I smoke, I don't want to smoke. I eat, I don't want to eat. I'm not interested in what you don't want, I'm interested in what you do want. When somebody says, I want to stop smoking, of course, but what do you want? I want to be healthy, I want to be vibrant, I want to be energetic. Well, that's what I'll work on. The stopping the smoking part is the easiest part. The getting them into a healthy, congruent lifestyle with what they want consciously, but what is blocked unconsciously, that's the work that I have to do.
That's great.
Excellent.
Larry, how can people get in touch with you?
I have a website which is called, bless you,
Thank you.
it's called C.O.R.E Remedy.care, C-A-R-E. So it's C.O.R.E, C-O-R-E, Remedy, R-E-M-E-D-Y.care. And if anybody just wants to talk to me, if you have a question, if you don't want to go to my website, 201-388-6491. On the East Coast, and I would just appreciate calls that happen between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m.
Excellent. Thanks again, Larry. If you'd like, you can subscribe to our podcast on YouTube and iTunes, and please share with your friends or anyone who may be interested in our content. Until next time, train your brain, train your body.